Osiris.
Welcome back to Touchdowns All Day. I'm your host, Max Dawson. Now, the Bubble Tour West Coast leg is behind us. It is in the books. We've all had a moment to reflect, catch our breath, and look back at what will undoubtedly go down as a historic Disco Biscuits tour. 18 shows played in just under a month. 17 as the Disco Biscuits, 1 as Tractor Beam. During that period, we saw the band return to a few markets that they hadn't played in a very long time. I'm talking places like Chico. Last time played February 27th, 1999. Santa Ana down in Orange County, which hadn't had a show since 2003. Flagstaff. The last show there was 2/18/99. Proud to say I was in attendance. And Santa Fe, which hadn't been played since March of 2001. Band made its first visit to San Luis Obispo, the Fremont Theater. Check out that Rock Candy, my dark horse pick for Jam of the Tour. We saw the band also hit some new venues. Revolution Hall up in Portland, Oregon. Side note, Disco Biscuits are clearly a Portland band. You decide which Portland. The historic Warfield Theater in San Francisco. Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. The Mayan, the band's new home in Los Angeles. And the Sound in Del Mar outside of San Diego. Along the way, we also revisited a few old favorites like the Catalyst in Santa Cruz, the Crystal Bay Casino, and of course, the band's home in Colorado, the Mission Ballroom. So many impressive stats from this tour. And for these, I've got to give credit where credit is due. Mike Walsh and Ryan Ryonics, master statisticians, members of the Touchdowns All Day Advisory Committee, keepers of the Biscuits Internet Project setlist files. Thank you, gentlemen, for compiling this tale of the tape. Over the course of those 18 shows, the Disco Biscuits played 96 different songs. Now, considering that in 2024, the band set its all-time record for the most unique songs played in a year with 159, I'd say we are well on our way to another banner year in 2025. In 34 sets, the band paused precisely 3 times. 3 commas, 34 sets. Let that sink in. We saw 5 debut performances. January 18th, Under Your Spell. January 23rd, Postcard. On February 22nd, the Shocked Crossin' remix. More about that in a moment. And on February 7th, at the Boulder Theater, as Tractor Beam, the band debuted 2 new covers, the Mission Impossible theme and Damager. 8 bust-outs during this tour, and by bust-outs, we're going off of Mike Walsh and Ryan Ryonics' definition, songs that hadn't been played in at least a year or more than 50-plus shows. So that included Humu, Boomshanker, Bernstein and Chasnoff, Tricycle, The Bridge, Therapy, Tribulations, and Naiba. We got such a nice balanced mix. The only songs that were played 5 times during the entire tour were Country Royale and Under Your Spell. And Country Royale has really matured into that showpiece, second set, second song, Saturday night, heavy hitter. It's probably the most consistent jam vehicle that the band currently has. 4 songs got 5 plays. Those included To Be Continued, Ring the Doorbell Twice, Fire Will Exchange, and Dino Baby. So essentially, we're seeing the band respond to the way that you all voted in the 2024 Year in Review poll. And did the band deliver massive, long jams? Well, of course, this is the Disco Biscuits. Are you crazy? Why would you ask such a question? Up in Crystal Bay, over the course of 2 nights, the band played a 38-minute dribble, 35-minute C2B, a 35-minute house dog, and a 30-minute country royale. If it isn't clear by this point, go to the Crystal Bay shows. You will not be disappointed. There's also a 36-minute long 7-Eleven played at Meow Wolf on February 5th. Highly recommend you check that one out. One of the most exciting performances of the tour. A 32-minute freeze at the Mayan. And a 31-minute wormhole up in Portland, Revolution Hall on January 18th. So there you have it, folks. Pretty much something for everyone on this tour. The only thing that was missing, yes, I'm going to say it. It's been 411 shows since the world was last blessed with a mirrors. Touchdowns all day. We're mass communicating. On Sunday, February 2nd, 2025, the Disco Biscuits Bubble Tour rolled through Flagstaff, Arizona for a split bill with Lotus. During the middle of the second set, coming out of a blazing I-Man, the band dropped into an unfamiliar groove with some familiar vocal touches. Before long, the Biscuits' official socials had announced that the band had just performed for the first time a live version of their newest studio creation, a remix of the Revolution in Motion song Shocked by the producer Crossin. Now, regular TDAD listeners may recall BARBER hinting at the existence of this remix on an earlier episode of the pod. While I was expecting that the Shocked remix would hit streaming services sometime in 2025, I wasn't expecting it to have its world premiere on stage. Now, obviously, I wanted to know more, and I figured you would too. So I reached out to Crossin, aka Phil Tamney, to invite him on the pod to tell us all about his collaboration with the Biscuits. Phil, welcome to Touchdowns All Day.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
First things first, who or what is Crossin?
Crossin is a moniker that I created out of the necessity of my dance music that I was making while I was also making my other music for my other band called Murder Pop.
Okay. So now how long have you been making music under the Crossin moniker?
Probably about 3 years now, seriously. all kind of came out of COVID. You know, everyone was bored. I downloaded FL Studio one day, thought I was going to do music just for fun. And then it kind of took off that I started making, house music, melodic house, trance stuff. And then ended up having my band. And when I was bored of doing that, I would sit down and make beats, and that's basically where it came from. So 3 years solid, 2 years of actually like releasing music.
Well, you mentioned that you previously were playing in a band and that you created this project as a separate outlet. Tell me a little bit about the band that you have and what kind of music you play in that context.
We play synth rock. It's like very alternative, kind of like the Killers meets Van Halen meets all that 80s stuff with the hair metal, everything with the synths and shredding guitars. And being that a big fan of the Disco Biscuits, it kind of settled in when I would tell my guitarist, like, hey, let's shred, and when it all, happened where the band was doing their own thing as this pop rock sound, I needed my outlet for my love of dance music, which was still rooted in this. I love the Biscuits. I love jam. I love all this stuff from, all these DJ producers. And what ended up happening is I had to find this very good separation between the two. But finally, it actually, I've started melding them together now, which I have 2 albums that we're in the works for. And we're hoping to release our first of the 2 in the coming months. So it'll be out soon enough under Murder Pop.
You mentioned earlier that Crossin was an outlet for some of the more melodic house music that you were creating. What sort of artists influenced you, or what were some of the reference points that you were looking toward when you started making music under this name?
It took a long time for me to figure out my sound. And I was listening to guys like Lane 8, Lay Youth, all of the This Never Happened moniker label, and then Anjuna Beats, all of the guys doing deep house with Jody Winsternoff and Above and Beyond, trance, all the big stuff, Armin, and so I was listening to a lot of that. Anima and all this new melodic techno became kind of what I started hearing, and found that I just loved those smooth analog synth sounds that everyone has really gotten into.
What is your history with the Disco Biscuits?
It goes back a long ways. I spent a long time listening to the Biscuits since probably 2000. OG style Biscuits. And I was in high school at the time, and I was going to the shows in Philadelphia all the time at the TLA, the Electric Factory. And then my friends and we started touring with them up and down the East Coast. Every Camp Bisco, spent many years doing that. And I somehow ran into John one day at a friend's wedding. And that's how my friendship with the band kind of came about, where I started talking to him and his wife, Lisa, who is very good friends of my friends. And she said, "Oh, you need to meet my husband." And I was like, "Oh, I know him." I know of him well, big fan. And we just started chatting actually over, some nonsense about coding, believe it or not. And then I started saying like, hey, you guys should really do remixes of your new songs because they're super good. And he just kind of said, why don't you do one? And I took it as like, okay, maybe I'll do one. I went home, chopped up Shock, and sent him a little thing like, let me know what you think of this, and didn't really think about it for like a couple months, and started building on it a little by little. And he hit me back one day when I was out doing something. He said, hey, can I get a copy of that? I'm playing down in Baltimore. And I want to play it. And I said, cool. Give me 24 hours. I whipped something together really quick for him, mixed it down, sent it over. I think it was him and Brownie were playing down at the, what is it called? The Box. And from there, he was like, come on down, come. And I went down to listen to it. It sounded really cool. The fans really vibed on it. And that's where he was like, I think we have something here. And it felt really good in the room. And so when he, I left that night and he was like, I think this is great. And I said, cool. Well, let's see what we can do with it. So he sent it over to the band. They liked it. And it just kind of needed a little work, like it was rough. But the mix ended up just really great. He and I sat down for a couple sessions and just really worked out the sound, and really, I just wanted to like imitate in my mind what I thought the Biscuits sounded like to me if I were to remix them. And so that's what kind of came out of it, was this trancey vibe.
As someone who's been listening to the band for almost 25 years, or 25 years, I guess, at this point, that must have been pretty exciting to have the opportunity to collaborate with one of your favorite musicians.
Oh, absolutely.
Had you ever worked on or with tracks by the Biscuits in the past, or even covered them with your band?
No. The thing about my love for the Biscuits was they're so original and so genuine as a band. I was like, man, like no one does what these guys do. And I found myself like elated. It was like a dream to me. I've had times where I've had dreams of being like, oh, I could make this kind of stuff and have a band like this and do jam with big shredding guitars and dance and all that. But it all kind of still came back to like, these guys are just so original and I can't duplicate that. So for me, working with them, truly is a dream come true for me.
How did you land on Shocked for your first collaboration? What about this track made you want to give it the Crossin' treatment?
It started that album and it really set the tone for that album. And I really liked that about it. It just had such interesting texture to it. It was very different from everything else they've ever done. It kind of reminded me of like Planet Anthem type stuff, high production, minimal jam. And I felt like it had these really cool guitar riffs in it that I wanted to chop up, and loved the bass line. Also loved John. His voice on it was fantastic. And he had some great little lines that I heard that was like, yeah, this would sound so cool. And so when I started chopping it up and found myself listening to all the little bits, it just really made sense at that point.
What was the process for creating the remix? You mentioned that you chopped up the original studio track. Were you later given the stems, the acapellas, or anything like that to work from?
Yeah. So I was using like bootleg stripped down stems that I created for a lot of the original parts. And then when it was getting more serious about it, they sent over the acapellas, and I got to really dive into that more and get a much cleaner sound. But I really still wanted those raw, chopped up, guitar riffs with a couple pieces of the bass still stuck in it, because it just had that house feel to it then. And so I wanted some of that to be a part of it, and yet be this completely separate sound, with the big anthemic synths coming through. So it was very easy. Once I heard it, it was like, yeah, this is going to be great. The first part, I almost had this idea where I came to them and said, let's do something a little more tech house, because I felt like that's the vibe right now in the scene. Everyone loves it. And so I took the bass parts, chopped them up, took everything as very raw. And then it just didn't sound the way I thought it would be. It had this very classic house sound, but it didn't feel Biscuits enough for me. And so we nixed all the bass lines, rebuilt those, slapped a big Reese synth on, which is that middle part, where it just starts to build big time. And it's got that Euro trance sound to it. And I feel like they do that. Aaron is, he plays that virus on keys, and I wanted to kind of imitate some of those sounds too, to keep it, in the mix with them.
Well, obviously the Rolling Through Outer Space with My Brothers lyric factors prominently in the remix. It's sort of the thread that ties it all together.
Yes.
What are some of the other elements you used, be they parts of the original Shocked studio recording or synths or effects that you brought in your own studio?
There were a couple guitar riffs. They were actually kind of like these wah sounds that John was doing. And then I wanted the part where he says, we get it. And then I listened to this next part that he says insane. And I was like, oh, we're going to chop that up, and it's we get insane, rolling in outer space. Like how much more could it be a party track with that. Like I was like, yeah, this is the line, you know, we get insane. And so when I sent that over, he goes, where'd you get this part? And I was like, oh, I built it. You know, it's like, it popped out to me with that, these wah guitars, and everything else is kind of, just working with my synths and stuff. I used my Prophet on it for a little bit, and then I really love using Serum and Diva plugins because the wavetables are fantastic, and you can really make some really good textures and original sounds. So that's basically it. And I dug through a plethora of drums to find like the right ones that hit and really like slap you in the face. So I wanted that's really slappy kick. And I think it really holds it down as like this really solid sound, this heavy bass.
Well, the song had its debut on stage, which was exciting and unexpected for me. I knew it was coming. I didn't expect it to show up in the middle of a raging I-Man. Rolling through outer space. Rolling through outer space. What was your response to hearing the band play your version of Shocked on stage in Flagstaff?
Oh man. Well, I was sitting listening on Nugs actually, and here on the East Coast. So it was late, and I was laying in bed, and I almost cried. It was just like, wow, this was it for me. I was like, man, everything I worked for on this song really came to fruition, and I had no idea. I've been just like listening to this tour thinking, man, how cool would it be if they popped that in the middle of somewhere at some point, you know? And they played, VIP Shocked, and I saw that and was like, well, maybe that was it. Maybe they did like a little thing there just to do a test run. And then it was like, oh no, they just whipped out 11 minutes of great stuff. And oh man, it's so cool to have my my name on the credit sheet right there on Nugs, and to kind of just be sitting in their catalog forever now, which I'm so grateful for.
What's the response been from the community?
Pretty great. The fan base, I think, loves it. I think they have listened to it a ton now, and people are still settling into it. You never know. So, but friends and family, they love it. They've been waiting on it. I kept telling them, like, just hold out. You'll see, it'll come eventually. And now it's out, and we're just happy that it has gotten good reception so far.
So the band is gearing up for another Tractor Beam performance this weekend in Colorado. And it would seem that your Shocked remix is a shoe-in for the set list. Like, I can't make any promises, but it would seem like it is perfectly in that new Tractor Beam pocket. I want to know, what are your thoughts on the evolution of Tractor Beam over the last few years, and specifically of the remixes that Magner showcased during the most recent Tractor Beam performance at Pine Creek Lodge in Montana?
I like where they're going with it. I think it's a totally expected thing that they could do. I've thought for years they should be dropping samples into their mixes and into their live stuff. And so for them to do it now, playing Dom Dalla and all these other guys. It's been really fun. I think those sets are really interesting with Alan on electronic drums instead. So the MIDI sounds and all the samples he can switch in and out sound really cool. And it's bringing this really cool dance vibe that you don't get anywhere else. You don't get to hear live band doing club. And, there's other bands that do jam a little like that, but not in that way, where the samples that Aaron's putting out and doing, it really is revolutionizing their sound and putting them on a whole new trajectory with the band in general. I felt like they've reinvented themselves completely because of it. And it gives them such an opportunity to go back to that sound of the clubby, dancey stuff. And, everybody loves old classics, but to hear them done as new renditions is really, really fun.
With the Shocked remix behind you, if you had carte blanche to remix any Biscuits track, what would you choose?
Believe it or not, I always love, I would do Rockefeller as it's always been one of these songs that has stuck out to me as it's got fun lines. It's got, the vocals are great. And, it unfortunately I would have to find some live version of it that has the ultimate perfect, recording, because you can't really get it anywhere else. But yeah, I think that would be cool. It's got some funky lines, and talking about sitting in a hot tub, listening to, the Pink Floyd and all that good stuff. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. I could hear that.
I think that's a great pick. And seeing that you picked Shocked for your first collaboration with Barber and the Biscuits, it's not surprising because it sits in that same pocket. Slower songs with more bounce.
Yep.
It's a different expression of the Transfusion Disco Biscuit sound, but one that definitely lends itself to that club remix.
Oh yeah. They both kind of sit in that 125 BPM, where that's like the ultimate, right in the pocket for like dance floor, everyone vibes, the heart rate's good. People are just having a good time at that point. I think Donna Summer even said that back in the day. She said 125 is the perfect spot, and all of her music kind of sat in that disco era of 125.
Well, I know that the band loves its 132 these days, but 125 still has a place in all of our hearts.
Oh yeah.
Phil, how could people find you and your music online?
Yeah, you can find my music at everywhere, actually, on Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, YouTube, Tidal, every streaming platform it's out. You can also find me at Crossin' Music on Instagram, and you can find my band Murder Pop at murder_pop on Instagram as well.
Well, we'll make sure to link to all of your accounts in the show notes. Everybody check out Phil and the Crossin' remix of Shocked, available now on all streaming platforms, and perhaps to be played at the next Disco Biscuits show you attend. Phil, I hope you get to see a live performance of the Shocked remix in the near future. What's your next show going to be?
Oh, I hope so. I'm going to definitely be down for the Queen in Delaware. I don't get to travel much these days with, kids and stuff like that. But, I'll be there for that, no doubt. I'll be standing right in the front. So
feels so great to have you on the show. So great to hear your music. And I can't wait to hear what you and the band cook up next.
Thank you. Thanks, Max.
Just a quick episode this week. I figure we're all recovering from tour. I know I'm recovering from a bout of norovirus that I contracted on tour. Stay safe out there, everybody. Rest up. The band will be back on the road in a few short weeks with the East Coast leg, the Bubble Tour. Touchdowns All Day is an Osiris Media production. This episode was written, produced, and edited by me, Max Dawson. It was mixed and mastered by Matt Dwyer. Special shout out in this episode, once again, to Mike Walsh and Ryan Ryonics, the Stat Masters. Check them out online at discobiscuits.net. Barber and I would love to hear from you. 424-666-SIYD. That's the Touchdowns All Day hotline. You could find our website at www.touchdownsallday.com. John is at Barber Shreds, and I'm at FY Maxwell on all the major social platforms. And we are at TDAD Baby on X and at Touchdowns All Day on Instagram. This and every episode of Touchdowns All Day would not be possible without the contributions of many women and men, including the Disco Biscuits Road Crew, Ben, Pat, Nick, Ryan, Rich, Dane, Amin, Herm, and Tara. Of course, the band itself, Mark, John, Aaron, and Alan. Ben Baruch and Andrew Kaplan at 1111 Management. The big brains of the Touchdowns All Day Advisory Committee. That's Andy Bazzani, Mike Walsh, Russ Tabes, Dave Cook, Scott McClintock, Think Tank Dubs, Rich Steele, Ian Armstrong, John Goldberg, John Polites, Colleen Stern, and Ryan Ryonics. Our coaches, Joey Friedman and Steve Martocci. Our multimedia producer, Alex Mazer, New Springfield Boogie. And of course, our partners, Lisa Gutwillig, Deb Brownstein, Angelica Magner, Sandra O'Quinn, Andrea Rivers, and Avery McMahon. On behalf of John Barber, and the entire Touchdowns All Day family, this is Max Dawson saying see you next time.
Mass communicate. Mass communicate. Mass communicate.
Osiris.